Hello, fellow humans. Today I want to talk about the former dominant Vickers CR, but what happened to this vehicle? It was once maybe even the best tier 9 tank in the game, but now we'll have a look at it. It has 2,400 DPM. They nerfed the alpha damage without nerfing the rate of fire. The rest of the tank is pretty much still the same. It's still extremely accurate. It has 10 degrees of gun depression, and the mobility, I mean, it's a light tank. It's gonna get around just fine. And the armor, it had armor once, but now it doesn't have any left at all. But before we further look at the vehicle in World of Tanks Blitz, let's have a little bit of a look at the history of this vehicle, where it came from, and what Crevice Wargaming has extracted this vehicle from to then put it into the game, and also what does this thing have to do with the entire story of the Vickers CR. Unsurprisingly, the tank doesn't exist anywhere else outside the game. However, there is one slight hint to its existence I found on the most trustworthy platform on the internet. Reddit, the combination of a hull and turret from two different projects, one of which is the FE300 series. The FE300 series itself is based on the A46, which leads all the way back to the Tetrarch. Yes, that thing. Remember our little friend? This is the FE303, an artillery version of the FE300 project. Here's a list of all of them. Most of them are artillery and utility vehicles, so I'm very happy that these aren't in the game. There were only two prototypes built of the FE300 series, which weighed 21 tons. Guess the weight of the FE301 in World of Tanks Blitz? It's right, 29 tons, because that makes sense. And if that is not enough, it also has a 825 horsepower Rolls-Royce Meteor. There is a 800 horsepower version of the Meteor available. However, how a 1960s engine ended up in a tank project cancelled in the 1950s is a whole different story. Well, it isn't, it's just wargaming. As for the Vickers CR, it uses the same gun as the Centurion 7-1, the L7 Hesh gun, but the Vickers uses a so-called L7 short, which didn't exist anywhere, which also allows them to nerf the alpha damage for some reason. Now, the Vickers CR has a tier 10 version as well, the Vickers Light, but that vehicle's existence is also extremely dubious. The only real closely related project to that vehicle I could find is the cancelled Vickers NBT. Well, it wasn't entirely cancelled, it was just shipped off to India and let them handle it. But to sum it up, we have a tank that didn't exist with a gun that didn't exist. So, great historical accuracy right there. Now, if you enjoyed that little lesson in how tanks are made up by wargaming and how the history of that particular vehicle works, then subscribe, leave a like, and write me in the comments, and I will keep doing this little history piece if I do another tank review. But in the history of Blitz, this vehicle was quite influential as well, because this is the only vehicle that I have a rating camo for, because essentially it was a tier 9 that played better than some tier 10s, which means you could get it into rating battles, play a couple of games, get tier 10 average damage, but get tier 9 rating battle points, because obviously if you're low tier, you get more points. But Wargaming didn't like that, and they nerfed it 2-3 times. For example, reduced the turret armor specifically, because when this vehicle was introduced, it essentially had more turret armor than AMX 30B. It still does, but anyway. So this vehicle was great, but the death blow only happened a couple of weeks ago in update 10.3, because the vehicle has a 7.3 second reload, and it had 350 average damage. Wargaming decided to simply nerf the alpha damage of the Vickers Light and also the Vickers CR down to 300 without adjusting this vehicle's average damage. Now, will that be changed in the future? Well, I do hope so, because it has 2,400 DPM now, which is unacceptable for a vehicle like this. So I do expect this video to go out of date eventually, but as of now, it just simply shows the lack of consideration done in certain areas of World of Tanks Blitz, and I do find that quite shocking that you could end up with 2,400 DPM while only having 300 alpha damage. I mean, it makes sense for a T92, but not really for this vehicle. Now, but on a different note, this WZ player, I don't know what to say about him. I mean, just look at the conversation we've had after the battle, and all I can say is that this guy is allowed to vote. I'm scared for humanity, essentially, but don't be this guy, and yeah, just don't be like that. Be like the Vickers CR and absolutely wreck these clowns with ease like that, because despite the vehicle that default is staying there. I'm not changing that. It's stuck there. Comment down below. Truly high video production quality right here, but then again, this is what Blitz. So the thing is about the Vickers CR, what's the point, really? I mean, you can just end up playing a Batchat or an E50 or a M46 Patton. All of them, they're going to have more DPM. They're going to perform better than this vehicle. I mean, it is reasonably fast, but it's not like light speed quick. So you don't really have anything left now. The armor got nerfed 5 times, and now the gun has been absolutely castrated all the way down to whatever hell it came out of in the first place. So, I don't know. What kind of... I mean, we all know that wargaming sometimes makes balance changes that are not well thought through at best and malicious at worst. Because here's the thing. Changing it to 300 alpha damage, it's not good. It doesn't make any sense. It's a 105mm gun. Why does it have less alpha damage than a 100mm gun? Nobody knows. But then, not adjusting the reload time to actually still keep the DPM somewhat reasonable... Did someone forget something? I mean, there is eventually probably also going to be some kind of tier 9 rebalance, because changing stuff for the sake of changing stuff is apparently the new norm now, where we just change the alpha damage of random vehicles for whatever reason to make the game even more complex and even worse to learn for new players. That always helps to improve matchmaking quality, to make it increasingly more complicated, but that's a different story. If you haven't watched my how to read the stats, how to understand the stats video, or maybe it's not out yet, I don't know, then watch that. So, this vehicle, it has been truly and utterly destroyed, and I hope for the sake of the Vickers CR and for the sake of my raiding battles, because this is the only vehicle that I ever really played in raiding battles, because I don't play raiding battles, and this is the only tank that really makes it fun. So I do hope, for myself, and also for the other Vickers CR connoisseurs out there, and I'm sure all 3 of you will agree, that this vehicle does need to get readjusted and readjusted properly. And it is just a wonderful, wonderful example of how things can go terribly wrong and nobody notices. So, here we are. What do we do now? Well, there is a clear meta changing in World of Tanks Blitz, and any vehicle that you own can be completely ruined within the next update. You always have to be aware of that. You don't own the tank, you simply are allowed to play it. So keep in mind, when the next time you research a vehicle, then the next update, it could get nerfed into the ground. So there's 2 things you could do. Research as much vehicles as you possibly can, or just buy a Soviet vehicle, because they're probably not going to get nerfed at something. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Don't get the Vickers CR. It's terrible now. Bye.